In the year 1992, India witnessed something that had never been seen before. A scandal so massive, so audacious, that it would shake the very foundations of the Indian stock market. This is the story of Harshad Mehta. Chapter 1, Humble Beginnings. Harshad Shantilal Mehta was born on July 29, 1954, in a small town called Raipur, in the state of Madhya Pradesh. His family, like many families in post-independence India, struggled to make ends meet. Now, imagine this: a young boy, growing up in poverty, watching his father work tirelessly, just to put food on the table. That was Harshad's reality. In 1961, when Harshad was just 7 years old, his family moved to Mumbai, the city of dreams. But for the Mehta family, it was more like the city of struggles. They lived in a small, cramped apartment. Harshad's father worked multiple jobs. And young Harshad? He watched, he observed, and he dreamed. He dreamed of something bigger. After completing his schooling, Harshad enrolled in Lala Lajpat Rai College. But here's the thing: he never completed his degree. Why? Because he was restless. He wanted to start earning, to support his family, to escape the cycle of poverty. His first job. Get this. He worked as a dispatch clerk at the New India Assurance Company. Can you believe it? The man who would later manipulate billions of rupees, started by filing papers and running errands. Chapter 2, Enter the Stock Market. In the early 1980s, something caught Harshad's attention. The stock market. Now, back then, the Indian stock market was nothing like what it is today. There were no computers, no electronic trading, no instant settlements. Everything, and I mean everything, was done manually. Traders would gather at the Bombay Stock Exchange. They'd shout, they'd gesture, they'd scribble on notepads. It was chaos. Beautiful, profitable chaos. Harshad saw opportunity. He started working as a jobber. What's a jobber, you ask? Well, a jobber was someone who facilitated trades between buyers and sellers. Think of them as middlemen. They'd buy shares from one person and sell to another, making a small commission on each transaction. And Harshad? He was good at it. No, scratch that. He was exceptional. He had this ability, you see, to read the market. To understand the psychology of traders. To know when to buy and when to sell. It was almost like he could smell opportunity. By the mid-1980s, Harshad had saved enough money to start his own firm. He called it Crore Research and Asset Management. Fancy name, right? But here's where things get interesting. Harshad didn't just want to be another broker. No. He wanted to be the broker. The one everyone talked about. The one everyone wanted to work with. And he had a plan. Chapter 3, Understanding the System. Before we go further, we need to understand how the banking system worked in India during the 1980s and early 90s. Now, pay attention to this part, because this is crucial. Banks in India, especially public sector banks, had huge amounts of money. We're talking about hundreds of crores of rupees. But here's the problem. Banks aren't allowed to just sit on money. They need to invest it, to earn returns. One of the ways banks invested this money was through something called government securities, or G-Secs for short. What are G-Secs? Good question. Government securities are basically loans that you give to the government. The government borrows money from you and promises to pay you back with interest. They're considered the safest investment because, well, governments don't default. Or at least they're not supposed to. Now, banks would buy and sell these G-Secs among themselves. Bank A might sell G-Secs to Bank B might sell to Bank C. And so on. But here's the catch. These transactions would take time. Sometimes, it could take a few days for the paperwork to be completed, for the securities to be physically transferred. So what did banks do? They created something called asterisk bank receipts, or BRs. Think of a bank receipt as an IOU. Let's say Bank A sells G-Secs worth 10 crore rupees to Bank B. Instead of immediately transferring the physical securities, Bank A would issue a bank receipt to Bank B. This BR was essentially a promise. A promise that said, hey, I'll give you the securities soon. Trust me. And here's the beautiful part. These bank receipts were not regulated. There was no central authority keeping track of them. No one verifying whether the G-Secs actually existed. It was all based on trust. Can you see where this is going? Harshad Mehta saw this loophole. And he saw opportunity. Chapter 4, The Ready Forward Deal. Now let me introduce you to another concept. The Ready Forward Deal, or RF deal. Stay with me here, because this is where things start to get complex. An RF deal worked like this. Let's say Bank A has G-Secs worth 10 crore rupees but needs cash immediately. Bank A would approach Bank B and say, hey, I'll sell you these G-Secs for 10 crore rupees today. But after 15 days, I'll buy them back from you for 10 crore and 5 lakh rupees. That extra 5 lakh rupees? That's essentially the interest. So Bank A gets immediate cash. Bank B gets a guaranteed return. Everybody wins. Or so it seemed. Here's the thing. Brokers like Harshad Mehta acted as intermediaries in these RF deals. Banks didn't directly deal with each other. They went through brokers. And this is where Harshad found his golden goose. Chapter 5, The Scam Begins. Picture this, it's the late 1980s. Harshad Mehta has established himself as a successful broker. He's handling RF deals between major banks. He's earning good money. But Harshad, he wants more. So he starts experimenting. Here's what he did. Bank A wants to do an RF deal with Bank B. Both banks approach Harshad to facilitate the transaction. Now, instead of simply connecting the two banks, Harshad does something clever. He takes the money from Bank A. But instead of giving it to Bank B immediately, he uses that money to buy shares in the stock market. Wait, what? Yes. You heard that right. He's using Bank's money to trade in stocks. Now, you might be thinking. But what about Bank B? They're expecting the money, right? Well, here's what Harshad would do. He'd approach Bank C and say, hey, Bank A wants to do an RF deal with you. Bank C would agree and send money. Harshad would then use Bank C's money to pay Bank B. It's like a chain, you see. He's constantly moving money from one bank to another, using each new transaction to cover the previous one. And in between, he's investing millions in the stock market. But wait. There's more. Remember those bank receipts I told you about? The IOUs? Well, Harshad took it to another level. He started creating fake bank receipts. That's right. Fake. He would approach a bank and say, I have G-Secs worth 50 crore rupees from Bank X. Give me money, and I'll give you the securities in a few days. The bank would give him the money, and Harshad would hand over a bank receipt. But here's the kicker. Those G-Secs didn't exist. The bank receipt was fake. And because there was no regulation, no one checking, no central authority verifying these receipts, he got away with it. Can you imagine the audacity? Chapter 6, The Market Manipulator. So now, Harshad Mehta has access to hundreds of crores of rupees. Money that doesn't belong to him. Money that he's essentially borrowed from the banking system without anyone knowing. What does he do with all this money? He becomes a market manipulator. His strategy was simple but brilliant. He would identify a stock. Usually a stock from a fundamentally sound company but one that was undervalued or not getting much attention. Let's say he picks ACC, the cement company. First, he'd start buying ACC shares in small quantities. Then, he'd buy more. And more. And more. What happens when someone starts buying huge quantities of a stock? The price goes up. Basic supply and demand, right? When demand increases and supply is limited, prices rise. So ACC's share price starts climbing. From rupees 200 to rupees 300. From 300 to 500. From 500 to 1000. Other investors notice this. They think, wow, ACC must be doing really well. Look at the price going up. So they start buying too. And the price goes up even more. The media starts covering it. Financial analysts start recommending the stock. Everyone wants a piece of ACC. And Harshad? He's sitting on millions of shares. Then, when the price reaches its peak, when everyone is buying frantically, Harshad starts selling. He sells his shares at the inflated prices. Makes a massive profit. And moves on to the next stock. Rinse and repeat. He did this with ACC. He did it with Reliance. He did it with Videocon. He did it with Sterlite. The man was unstoppable. Chapter 7, The Big Bull is Born. By 1991, Harshad Mehta had become a legend in the stock market. People called him the Big Bull. The man who could move markets with a single trade. The man who, according to rumors, had a Midas touch. He lived in a massive apartment in Worli, one of Mumbai's most expensive neighborhoods. He owned a fleet of luxury cars including a Toyota Lexus. Do you know how rare that was in India back then? The Lexus was one of the most expensive cars in the world. He wore expensive suits. Custom-made shoes. Swiss watches. The man lived like a king. Newspapers and magazines featured him on their covers. Financial journalists sought his opinions. Investors hung on to his every word. If Harshad Mehta bought a stock, that stock would rally. If he sold, it would crash. He was that powerful. But here's the thing about flying too close to the sun. Eventually, you get burned. Part 2, The Investigation. Chapter 8, The Journalist. Now, let me introduce you to someone important, Sucheta Dalal. Sucheta was a financial journalist working for the Times of India. She was smart, she was tenacious, and she had a nose for stories that others missed. In early 1992, Sucheta started hearing whispers. Rumors about irregularities in the banking system. Stories about fake bank receipts. Questions about how Harshad Mehta was able to move such massive amounts of money. Most journalists ignored these whispers. After all, Harshad Mehta was practically a national hero at this point. Questioning him was like questioning success itself. But Sucheta? She decided to dig deeper. She started investigating. Talking to bank officials. Examining transaction records. Connecting dots that no one else was connecting. And what she discovered? It was explosive. Chapter 9, The Story Breaks. On April 23, 1992, the Times of India published an article written by Sucheta Dalal. The headline read, Hazy banking deals worth 5,000 crore. 5,000 crore rupees. The article detailed how Harshad Mehta had been siphoning money from banks using fake bank receipts. How he'd been using this money to manipulate stock prices. How the entire system had been compromised. The reaction? Pandemonium. The stock market crashed. The Sensex, which had been at an all-time high of 4,500 points, dropped like a stone. Investors panicked. Banks panicked. Everyone panicked. Harshad Mehta tried to defend himself. He held press conferences. He claimed he'd done nothing wrong. He said, I have only replicated what the banks were doing. But the damage was done. The Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, launched an investigation. The Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, got involved. The big bull was under attack. Chapter 10, The Magnitude of the Scam. As the investigation progressed, the true scale of the scam became clear. And it was staggering. Harshad Mehta had siphoned approximately 4,000 crore rupees from the banking system. Let me say that again. 4,000 crore rupees. To put that in perspective, in 1992, that was almost equivalent to 1% of India's entire GDP. Can you wrap your head around that? One man, one broker, had managed to steal, or divert, or borrow 1% of the country's economic output. He'd issued fake bank receipts worth hundreds of crores. He'd created a circular trading system involving multiple banks. He'd manipulated the prices of dozens of stocks. The banks involved: Bank of Crore, Standard Chartered Bank, National Housing Bank, and many others. It was a systemic failure.